So I'm super excited to announce to everybody that Spoilercon registration is now open. It will be open from June 15th to August 15th. If you happen to be listening to this in a time-shifted manner, those are the dates we're talking about. This is 2021. This is Spoilercon, reintroduction to your society. Your ideal society in particular.
Yes, so the con is going to be held October 1st through 3rd in Portland, Oregon. We are planning currently to have a hybrid in-person and digital event, so that way people who can't make it to join us will be able to enjoy some of the con, while those of us that are able to rejoin our ideal societies can do so in person. Registration in person will be $120 and only $10 for the online version because tech does still cost something to run. You can register at spoilercon.org/registration. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spoilercon and subscribe to our newsletter at bit.ly/sconnews to get updates.
And this is going to be an incredible Spoilercon. I think just the excitement of everybody getting back into the real world and seeing each other, I just know people are going to have a great time. We have Michael and Kramer and Kate Redding coming back. They will be attending remotely and doing their usual reading and Q&A that we've had at every SpoilerCon so far. Last year we had a lot of success bringing in our guests remotely digitally, so I think we're still going to have a fair number of those guests attending remotely, and that will be streamed out to the digital folks. So other things we have going on, obviously we're going to be doing some podcast live recordings. There's that walking tour of Portland. There's going to be a silent auction for everyone online. We're going to do both an in-person costume contest and an online costume contest, trivia challenges, and just hanging out with our fellow nerds. And, maybe a couple of surprises. The SpoilerCon committee is still working on a few things.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success in past years, and we're very excited to build on those successes, use what worked before, and add new things. So stay tuned to our social media and get hype with us, because this is happening.
Yeah, we are super excited. For a while it was a little tentative, but with vaccines rolling out really strongly in the US, we're able to go ahead and have this event in person, which is super exciting. We are going to this year be having it at an actual hotel and conference center, so no more Airbnb. No more being packed in next to the party while you're trying to sleep. We're actually able to get your own hotel room. So it's the University Place Hotel and Conference Center. It's on 310 Southwest Lincoln Street in Portland, Oregon. If you are reserving a room, enter the promo code SpoilerCon, and you should get a very good rate for those nights.
Yeah, we've got a whole room block set out. A lot of work's been done to make sure that that is going to be affordable and friendly, so that way we can keep the party all together. We really, really hope to see you there, either in person or online, because this is going to be fun. We're really excited about what we're building.
And there's a lot of great information at spoilercon.org. Check it out. Any FAQs you may have, extended information, it's all there on the website.
Or, contact us in Discord and we can get hype about that at any time.
Or email us at spoilercon@gmail or watspoilers@gmail. We're there listening and waiting for your calls. Emails.
Calls, emails, texts, Instagram posts, whatever. We'll be excited. On all of our social media, you will be able to find us at SpoilerCon. We have streamlined and made consistent that labeling. So if you look for SpoilerCon on any platform, you will find us.
Look forward to seeing you there.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
So today I'm here with LezbiNerdy from the YouTube channel LezbiNerdy, and unfortunately Aradia's not here with us. She had a meeting that she had to go to, and we're here to cover 2 chapters. So LezbiNerdy, hi.
Hello, I'm waving with my invisible hands.
Yeah, your invisible hands. So I have to ask what I ask everybody. How'd you find Wheel of Time? How'd you get into content creation? And I gotta ask, why are you a floating head?
Okay, well, let's see. Maybe I'll do it backwards, just because the floating head is, probably the most obvious thing to anybody watching right now. I'm a floating head because I'm a woman on the internet. I've been wanting to make videos and content about Wheel of Time actually just all nerd stuff, which is why my YouTube name is LezbiNerdy, not something Wheel of Time specific. But
sure.
Right now, Wheel of Time is my obsession, and it's all Wheel of Time all the time.
As it should be.
Yes, exactly. But I just didn't want to put my face on there because in my experience, when people disagree with you on the internet, the first thing they will do, especially if you're a woman, is attack you, and they will try and attack you personally. And so far, when I say a lot of things that people disagree with, but because they can't attack me personally, they have to actually respond to what I said instead of just being like, well, I disagree with you and you're ugly or whatever, which is like what tends to happen to women. So that was my thing. And as I was saying to you before we, I just went live, I've been trying to figure out how to do this for about 2 years. Like 2 years ago, I was visiting my family I'm from Bermuda. That's where I was born. And I was visiting my family and they were helping me look up how to do this and stuff. And it was quarantine, as I said, that made me just go, the Memoji is fine. I'm just going to use the Memoji. I want to get this done. I'm so tired of looking into how to figure this out and stuff.
So 2 years ago, what made you say, I want to do content creation?
I don't know. I probably had a rant about something in my mind that I wanted to put on the internet. And I just was like, I don't know. It might have been Wheel of Time. It might have been something else. I have a weird, annoying rant that I would love one day to put out there about Star Trek Voyager and a specific episode of Star Trek Voyager that really annoys the hell out of me.
Oh, that is so... a tease. What I've watched Voyager. I will know what you're talking about. I need to know which episode.
Fury. I hate the episode Fury, where Kes comes back. We can spoiler something else too.
Sure, yeah.
So
spoilers Voyager.
Yes, it just bothers me so much because I found Kes a boring character. I didn't dislike her. She was just boring. Sure. But when she left, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. And then they brought her back just to show that her life was miserable. And then they sent her off to die. And I was like, why couldn't you have just left her alone? Why did you bring her back for us to know that now I have a whole, sorry.
The later Voyager got a little hollow in my opinion. They lost some of the heart of Star Trek.
I think so.
In the beginning, I love the beginning of Voyager. It's a little corny, and there is a reason I like the cast part of it, because at least she's not 7 of 9, who has issues with her costuming.
Oh no. Yeah.
And as well as some other aspects of her personality. I have no emotions. Teach me how to feel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got distracted there for a second with of course someone posted a GIF.
Yes. Yeah. So, but anyway, I don't know what it was that made me initially decide that I wanted to do that. I'm a nerd. I think nerdy thoughts all the time. And I just thought I would want to share my nerdy thoughts with people. And then, what made me it was, as I said, it was quarantine. I remember when I made my first video or started making videos, I started them because I wanted to respond or elaborate. I don't know how to say this. Daniel Green had released a video about Nyneave, and his video about Nyneave was great, but I felt like he had missed Nyneave is my favorite character, and I felt like he'd missed a core part of her personality, and so I wanted to say that. And I think my Nyneave video, it was my 3rd or 4th video, but I was trying to learn how to edit before. Sorry, I'm laughing at myself. I wanted to get good at editing before I made my Nyneave video, and now when I look back at that, I'm like, oh no, I was not good at editing at all. So. As
I said, there's a period of time where you think you're good, and then you realize how bad you are, and then you get worse, and then you get a little better, and then you're like, okay, I'm and then you're just on a slow slope of what you hope is improvement.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So and then how did I find Wheel of Time?
Yeah, that's the real one. Yeah.
Yes, now we get into the actual, not talking about Star Trek Voyager. I read Lord of the Rings in university for a class, and I loved it. And I had a roommate who was constantly reading fantasy all the time, and I remember I asked her for a recommendation after I finished Lord of the Rings. I asked her, I really like fantasy. I don't know if I like it as a genre. I really liked this particular book. can you recommend me another book? And I remember I specifically said to her, I don't want a series. You're always reading these really, really long series. I just want to taste it to see if this is a genre that I like. And I don't know, she must have mentioned it to her boyfriend, because he came over a couple of days later and handed me a copy of Eye of the World. I was like, and he's like, here, I didn't particularly like this book, but I heard you're looking for fantasy. Like, I remember he tried to, I don't know, it was a weird thing. He's like, I didn't like it. It was boring. It was cliche. It felt like a copy of Lord of the Rings. And
No.
yeah, but that was like a thing that stuck in my head, because he said, like, I didn't even finish it. It just felt like a copy of Lord of the Rings. And I was like, oh, I liked Lord of the Rings. All right, let me just pick that up. And I read it, and I thought, because I had specifically asked for a standalone book, I thought it was standalone. So I got to the end of it and was like, all right, that was a weird way to end that story.
Right.
But,
and in a lot of ways, it could be standalone, just with a weird ending. Like, there's, you know, I always say there's 3 endings in the book. The first ending at Eye of the World, the second ending at The Dragon Reborn, and then the third ending in A Memory of Light. Like, there really are 3 distinct places where you could have cut the series and been like, change a few words, change a little bit of the battle, end of the series right there.
Yeah.
Unsatisfying, but ending.
It was weird. Like, I remember thinking, oh, we all thought we were going to Tar Valon, and I never even got to see it. Like, that was just like a weird thing.
But isn't that a brilliant deception? Like, build this amazing city up in your mind, but then never visit
ever
it.
show. It's like a cost saving measure, except it's a book, and you don't need to do that.
It's like, yes, the TV show about space travel where they're in one room and they're talking about this great planet they're going to visit, and then the ship blows up before it ever gets there, and you're like,
yeah. Exactly.
You didn't have the budget to show the planet. Is that
pretty much?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, and then I don't know, it was like maybe months later, and I was in a bookstore. Like, this is a while ago, right? We didn't have the internet at our home, and so I couldn't like Google anything. I just finished the book and thought, all right. And then a couple months later in a bookstore, I saw a cover that reminded me, like, the thought in my head is, oh, that's like that book that I think I really liked. And I picked it up, and it said book 2 of The Wheel of Time. And I was like, oh shit, there's more. And I don't remember how many there were. I think maybe 4.
Do you remember what year it was?
No, because I lived with that roommate for 3 years. So I can't remember. I can't pinpoint it.
But that does give you a close range. There were only 2 or 3 books that could have been. Yeah,
so I was in university from 95 to 99. So somehow in there. Yeah, like... Yeah, so somewhere in there, but I think it was like 3 or 4 books, and I bought them, and I ate them up. Like, I often say this on my channel, I don't remember exactly my impressions of things the first time I read the books. I do remember things like, I remember being in the living room of that apartment that I lived in with that roommate, reading, and then my roommate calling me and putting the book down, and looking at my roommate and going, oh shit, that storm ended quickly. And her going, what storm? And we go, oh, the storm in the book. Like, there was a storm happening in this book that was not a real thing. Like, it was just so absorbing.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't feel like I've been transported that way into a book in a little while. It's like the way that Wheel of Time really sucked me in. And I think a little bit the first Stormlight Archive book, I feel like sucked me in like that.
Okay.
But I've never really gotten the same impression from the rest of them. I've always been, to be perfectly honest, I've been more and more disappointed with each preceding book. Not that they're bad. I wanted that experience from the first book, and there's always just been a lot that's taken me out of the Stormlight Archive books.
Right. Okay.
But I love them. Don't get me wrong. But the more I read Jordan and the more I analyze it, the less impressed I am with Sanderson. And that's I'm not trying to be mean to Sanderson in any way. It's just Jordan was so good. And trying to compare the two, it's like trying to compare, a virtuoso to someone who's just very, very good at something.
Right.
And it's...
Yeah. Okay. I cannot comment on this. I've read like the first 3, I've read the first era of Mistborn, and I enjoyed them, but like, but not even Brandis Sanderson stans would say that that's his best. Like, no. So I feel like I can't, like, it was good, but I wasn't reading it thinking, oh, I'm reading peak Sanderson.
But I would say you kind of are. Like, he does get better, but it's not like it's that much different, right? A lot of people, like, I think Mistborn is a great introduction to Sanderson. He gets better in some... He gets better in some parts. His pacing gets a lot better, right? Like that doesn't all happen at the end, although he still does have that problem. But if you what you feel about Mistborn Era 1, I feel like is kind of what you end up feeling about all of Sanderson.
Okay.
Which is why I think it's a good intro. Which is it's fun, and I would agree with that. It's fun, it's good. It's going to get better, but it's not the best thing I've ever.
Okay.
That's a tangent. People disagree or agree with me, whatever you want. Like everyone has their own preferences. I suckled at the teat of Jordan and unreliable narrators and not having things spelled out for you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I will say, Jordan kind of ruined me. I haven't read a lot of fantasy, to be honest. I've tried, and Sanderson, I really was very intentional. I'm going to finish these books because this is Sanderson, and he's very big and very popular, and he finished Wheel of Time. Mm-hmm. But other fantasy series that I've tried to pick up and read, I just tend to find myself thinking, oh, I wish I was back in the Wheel of Time. Yeah. So I end up just putting it down and starting yet another reread to be back where I want to be.
The only one that I have countered with is N.K. Jemisin and
Broken Earth.
Yeah. I mean, that's just so good that it's not as epic.
Yeah. I can read sci-fi perfectly fine. For some reason, sci-fi doesn't have, when I'm reading fantasy, it feels like it's slightly familiar, and that makes me want to go back to Wheel of Time. Whereas when I pick up sci-fi, it doesn't feel like Wheel of Time, so I'm okay. I can get into it perfectly fine. And Broken Earth felt different enough that I had no problem. If it is in any way tangentially related to Wheel of Time, it just makes me think it's like eating food that it tastes like another dish that you like better. It's like, oh, I mean, this is okay, but I'd rather be eating that other thing.
Or have you ever picked up a drink and you thought it was Coke and it was iced tea instead? And you're like, it's not that it's bad.
It's just
it feels like it went bad because I was expecting something else. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That is okay. Tangent, but in Korea, there's a paste that they like to put on things called it's red bean paste, and it's a sweet bean, and it's it's a traditional sweet. But I'm sure I would have liked it if the first time I tasted it, I'd known what it was. However, this is not a unique to me thing. This is almost all foreigners come to Korea and they see a pastry with this brown paste on it, and we think that it's chocolate, and you bite into it and it's a bean, and it tastes gross. And so every single time, if I try and eat it now, I get that gag reflex, because that was what happened that first time I tasted it. It was just oh
no,
what happened to this chocolate? What the
this chocolate's gone bad. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's something in our brain that we don't like eating spoiled stuff, and if something tastes off from and expectations rule our world, right?
There's someone in the chat who's had this exact experience. Yes. Yes.
PC Traveler. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's such a common thing that a lot of foreigners hate red bean because of that experience. And again, I might have liked it if somebody had said, "Oh, this is a unique Korean taste. It won't taste like
chocolate."
Anything." Yeah. So, yeah. There was a third question, or was there not? I don't know. I can't remember.
Floating Head, how'd you start making content, and how'd you start finding Wheel of Time? So
I think I did all of them.
I think
Yay!
You got them all. 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
right in a row.
Yes.
Set them up and knock them out in just under half an hour.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine. It's so much fun talking to you. I can do this all day. And we are going for a while tonight, folks. This is a double header. We are trying to do 2 chapters, 21 and 22, which they run right into each other. So I think that'll go really well. So this is chapter 21, Swoven Night, and our symbol is the dice for Matt, and Swoven Night for the night. Which I don't know much about this festival. We don't get a lot of information other than there's pine boughs in the windows and in people's hair.
Yeah. It just always the word Swoven always just hit me funny, because it for some reason it sounds like bovine to me, and so I know it's not. It has nothing to do with cows, but it just always my brain goes, it's not a cow. Just stop thinking cows.
I always think of Swollen Night, and so I think of a bunch of swollen dudes getting out of the gym being it's swole night. You swole? Get swole.
Oh my god. You even lift, bro?
You lift, bro? It's Swoven Night.
Oh my god, I never thought of that. All right.
So that's where my mind goes, but it's probably more like a Christmassy type.
Yeah.
But I think there's another holiday coming up in Like, isn't the Festival of the Birds coming up, or one of those festivals coming up?
It is coming. Is it in the same city? But yeah, the Festival of the Birds comes as well. I am very good at placing stuff in specific books for the first 4 books. And then after that, it's like what happens.
And that does appear to be happening only a week after. So I'm thinking that basically Swoven Night is like the 13 nights before the holiday or something like that. This kicks off the countdown to the Festival of the Birds.
Okay, that makes sense, actually.
Night came slowly over Abu Dar, the glow of the white buildings resisting darkness. Small knots and bunches of Swoven night revelers with little sprigs of evergreen in their hair danced in the streets beneath a bright 3/4 moon. Few carrying so much as a lantern as they gambled. Gambled?
I know. That's the word. I've got my book open here. Gambled is the word that they are using.
Shouldn't it be spelled differently?
I just Googled gambol with an L, and it means to run or jump about playfully.
Thank you, Jordan, teaching me new words every day. Because I always assumed he was saying gambled, like throwing the dice. But no, it's a totally different word. Nope. Few carrying so much as a lantern as they gambled to the music of flutes and drums and horns that drifted from inns and palaces, dancing their way from one set of festivities to another. But for the most part, the streets lay empty. A distant dog barked, and another, closer, answered furiously until it suddenly yelped and fell silent. Balancing on his toes, Matt listened, eyes searching the moon shadows. Only a cat moved, slinking across the street. The slap of running bare feet faded. The owner of one pair should be staggering, and the other bleeding. As he bent, his foot kicked a club as long as his arm on the paving stones. Heavy brass studs shone in the moonlight. That would have been a broken skull for sure. Shaking his head, he wiped his knife on the ragged coat worn by the man at his feet. Open eyes stared at the night sky from a dirty, creased face. A beggar by the look and smell of him. Matt had not heard of beggars attacking people, but maybe times were harder than he thought. A large jute sack lay near one outstretched hand. The fellow certainly had been optimistic about what they would find in his pockets. The thing could have covered him from head to knees. Typical Matt.
Typical Matt, yeah. Just not... Matt is not putting together 2 and 2 that he is... Like, with a sack that big. It's just typical Matt not noticing or putting clues together. But Matt's smarter than that, right?
He's smarter than that. I always assume he's lying to himself.
Yeah.
Right? That, he knows they're trying to
He
kidnap
has to
him.
know.
He knows. He's pointing out all the weird things about it. He's like, that's a big jute sack. It's funny to be trying to rob twice.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to admit that somebody's after him.
Yeah.
And I think that's might be partially why he agrees to move into the palace.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes. Because, sorry, I know where this is leading, obviously. We all do. Spoilers out and everything, but this is not a favorite. So.
No, we do a lot of dancing around it. Just because it's not fun to be constantly talking about it. But yeah, moving into the palace is not the best move for him, and he does feel cornered into it and forced into it. And he doesn't want to be there by any means. Yeah. But it's not better than being kidnapped, I suppose, by dark friends?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because that would not have ended well in any way, shape, or form. Well, I don't know. Actually, it's Matt. It might have ended perfectly fine.
Of course it would, because it would have been lucky for some reason for him to get kidnapped, because he would have stumbled upon the enemy. Yeah. Do you think one of these beggars is old Cully?
No, I mean, not the one that's dead, I think. But it very well could be. Like, he has, rounded up his troop of dark friend beggars. I like the fact that there is one beggar dark friend and everything. It would surprise me if there were a lot of beggar dark friends, because to me the point of becoming a dark friend is that you want to get power and you don't care about, you want power and money. It seems to me that it would be weird for somebody to be like, no, I'll be a dark friend. I'm perfectly okay with continuing to live in squalor.
There's that. There's also, though, preying on people who are down on their luck, right? I mean, the military does it, and the dark friends do it too. Oh, it sucks being a beggar. Come with us, and you'll be the best beggar you can be. As I say, old Cully, he didn't want to, just like Shuriam, she was just trying to climb the ranks. She didn't really want to be a dark friend. I believe old Cully is the same thing. He just wants to be the best beggar. Right. He can be. That's all. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the purpose of being a dark friend at that point would be to try to stop being a beggar.
You think, right? Yeah. Like, that's... But, you know, maybe being a beggar is, you know, that you do that on Tuesday mornings for a couple of hours, you know, and, like, the rest of the time you're smuggling, drinking, killing, you know, all those fun underworld
maybe that's it,
right? Like, yeah. You're really, being a beggar is just like, oh, yeah, I can hide my leg underneath me and pretend that, like, I've only got one leg.
Yeah,
and
beggars, like, their cover. My shift as a beggar.
Well, I mean, Ebudar very much it's
the
all
guilds
about
and stuff,
the guilds and the regulated, and everybody's regulated, and you have to work a certain amount, and there is a beggars guild. So I imagine there's power in the beggars guild, and climbing the ranks has to be a thing.
Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that, but yeah, if there's a guild, then there has to be ranks. You're right. There has to be.
And so, if you want to climb the ranks of the beggars guild faster, why not be a dark friend?
I guess. Wow. Yeah. Makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, you think, you're like, no, I don't want to be a beggar anymore, but it's once you have power, no matter how crappy the institution you're in, sometimes people will cling to that.
Yeah, well, like, you know, because there's always a lot of people. Sorry, there's traffic outside my place at the moment.
It's Korea.
Yes.
Real live noises straight from Korea.
Yes. But yeah, like, you hear a lot of people say, oh, like, why would anybody ever be a dark friend? Because, like, in the time of the series, it sucks. But for, like, the 3,000 years prior to this, it probably was great. Like, if the world isn't ending, I bet you being a dark friend just meant that you got money and power and, you know, you occasionally had to kill and murder. But if you were okay with that, then...
Or even enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like,
you got to do it scot-free.
Yeah. Like, I bet you it was great being a dark friend when the world wasn't ending.
It's like going to Princeton and being part of those secret societies, you know? It's like...
I'm glad you finished that. You're like, it's like going to Princeton. I'm like, what?
I mean, I could have probably stopped there. There's enough of, like, power connections and moving going on in the background and evil torture of innocence going on at those places that... Okay, so we've got a little bit of fireworks exploding, and he starts thinking about Nielsen mentioning an illuminator in the city, which we know has to be Eludra.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's the one selling fireworks because she thinks she's the Illuminators Guild now and all that kind of jazz.
Yes.
Well, wait, are there more Illuminators in Ebudar? Because isn't there a guild house in...
Okay, this is where we get into, like, areas of my weakness in this, but from what I feel like, the guild kind of sort of fell apart.
Right, well, there was two of them. There was the one in Tanchico, and that got disbanded by the Shan-Chan.
Right.
And the other one blew up.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't think they've really made a new guild. Which is why they're, like, I feel like they're, you know, Eludra is like, I'm just independent at this point. I make my own decisions.
Right.
I think there could be other illuminators because, you know, they have these skills still.
Sure. Well, a lot of them were executed by the Shan-Chan.
Yeah.
No, I always confuse the Tanchico house with the one here in Ebudar because both cities are taken over by the Shan-Chan, and so I'm like, wait, is that house in Tanchico or in Ebudar? But it's in Tanchico, right. So it's been taken over, and the one in Caira was disbanded by the king. Well, the Illuminators left because of Vamoose.
Yes. Well, it also exploded.
Yeah. Well, Rand. Yeah.
Rand exploded it. Yeah.
Rand exploded it. That's right. He had to take out the Trollocs, you know?
Yeah.
He was just, you know, practicing for when he had the power.
Exactly.
Gosh, it's so cute that I think back now we're in this, like, Rand destroying, like, whole armies and thinking back, oh, it was cute when he exploded just a tiny little warehouse.
Yeah. Yes. Poor little innocent Rand. Just
poor little Rand.
Ruining people's livelihoods. Although at that point, Caira was about to explode entirely because, you know, kill the king and civil war and it's on fire and it was like yeah. So
well, I mean, but that's all Rand, right? Like it was totally stable until he and Tom walked in and decided to just go a killing. Yeah, a little bit of regicide for fun.
Yes. Sorry, you said go a killing. I had that Rick and Morty in my head. I just love killing.
Here I go a killing again.
Yep.
No, that's Tom to a T. That guy, absolutely. Like I think he even has like a ratty cloak at some point in the show.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember. That's Tom. Here I go a killing again. Because it's all about kings, right? Because he took out
Morgase's what's his name with a T? Yeah.
Tom and Dread. Yeah, not Tom. No, that's
I don't know, Galad's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because he was plotting to kill more gays. Bastard.
Mm-hmm.
So he, after encountering these beggars and seeing the fireworks, hightails it back to the Wandering Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks by Caira. There's a little bit of Caira. Caira is so jealous. She absolutely is interested in Matt. And he keeps just, like, brushing her off.
Yeah, which I find, like, odd. Not that, I mean, obviously everybody has their own taste, but I feel like Matt, one of the things I love about Matt is he's a very much a consent guy. Like, you want me? Yeah, all right, cool. Like, I mean, I don't even want to get into what's happening next. Again, like you said, it's not a fun thing to talk about, but he, like, if a woman doesn't want him, he has no desire for her.
No.
And the fact that this woman has a desire for him would feel like, to me, it would be like, oh, ding, all right, let's go. Like, it's odd to me that he just seems to let her.
Well, she is Satala Anand's daughter, and he is terrified of
Satala Anand. Yeah, I suppose. Okay.
Yes. That's where there's someone who's not willing in that relationship,
right?
And it's her mother.
Yes.
And in Ebu Dar, the mother gets as much say as she does.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Now, okay, because Caira calls Bragita a gilded woman, and I've never fully gotten what that means. Like, I get that she's just like, oh, it's a, I don't know, beautiful woman? I don't understand what gilded woman would be describing.
Blonde.
Blonde?
Golden hair.
Oh.
She has gold. She's described as having blonde golden hair.
Okay. All right. Like, because I was always like, is she, like, fancy?
Yes. That's whether, because, like, gilded, you're like, did someone, like, emboss her with, like, gold, like, foil? Is that what's going on? Like, what is going on? Like, is this something with the festival, or?
I always thought it had something to do with her clothes, because I was like, I never picture Bragita wearing super fancy clothes, but
no, of course not.
Her hair, that makes so much sense. Okay.
She has this mane of golden blonde hair in a braid that everybody, like, that's the first thing you think about her. She's she's gilded.
Okay, now I will forgive that sentence then. Because that's one of those things that jumps out at me every time. It's like, okay, what is Bragita wearing? What is she wearing that this is what they're saying about her?
I absolutely highlighted that sentence and was like, this is something, it's definitely a weird phrasing from this particular woman, right? It's almost like she's trying to make a point and be like, she's gilded because she's golden and shiny on the outside, but worthless on the inside. Yeah. So it's like she's trying to make that point in two different ways, both saying she's a blonde woman, but also saying that worthless hussy.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really excellent turn of phrase. Again, Jordan just telling you so much about Caira in a couple of sentences, and her personality and what she wants and what she's jealous about.
Yeah.
Ugh, so good. So good. Yes. Little Jen posted a great picture of just a statue, just a gold.
Yes, there you go.
Statue. Yeah, I'm like,
yep, that's what Bragita looked like when she.
Yeah, totally. Only until Iran Riyadh.
Oh, yeah.
What was the James Bond movie where the girl was painted in gold and then ended up dying about it? Not that I haven't watched a lot of James Bond. I just know that's a thing.
I'm sure I've seen all of them, but those are movies that don't stick at all.
I would assume Goldfinger.
Yeah, that was what but I don't really know. So.
Austin Powers definitely parodied it.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. Gold member. Yeah, it was the whole thing where the girl gets killed by being painted in gold, and that suffocates her.
Oh, right, of course, yeah.
Have to breathe through your skin. And then Mythbusters did a whole myth-busting thing on it, where they ended up painting, like, Jamie in gold paint and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It was also not a pleasant episode to see Jamie in gold paint.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and that didn't one of the initial actor to play the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz had to quit but that was an allergy, but they were covering his skin and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of history of body paint having bad reactions to people.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Farscape, the blue bitch. I can't remember her name. That's just what Rigel calls her.
Okay.
What the hell's her name? Anyway, one of the actresses who was just in a blue paint, and she eventually claimed she had shaved head and went all in and just had to leave because of just intense reactions to paint. Yeah. It's one of those hard things about CGI has made such a difference where now we don't have to risk you can just give them a tint post. We'll fix it in post. We don't need to paint them in blue paint and have them have terrible body reactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Computers have come a long way.
Yeah. It saves us a lot.
Right. Zatuzan, that's right.
Oh gosh. Okay. I have not watched this show. All right. I was like, that is a series of letters on the screen.
Farscape, I highly recommend Farscape.
Yeah.
You know, it's Jim Henson puppets.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi done with Jim Henson puppets. Starts off a little rough, just because it's TV in the 90s. But then it did get cut off a little early.
Okay.
So they did a movie called The Peacekeepers to finish it up. So it's 5 seasons, really good content, really good sci-fi, especially season like 3, 4, 5. I think just really good. Some people think the end is a little absurdist, but I love it. It's one of my favorites, yeah. And Claudia Black is great. She's the female heroine.
Heroine, okay.
I was going to say heroine. That's not how you say that word.
No. But sorry, that would have amused me. Okay.
I did want to say, I really agree with Cook here, where she says she won't fix anything but soup and bread for those who are drowning their tongues in wine. I've worked in a bar and a kitchen, and the number of times I'm like, you drunk assholes, you know how much work I put into this food, and you're just, like, destroying it, and you're barely even tasting it. I've had people order food, and then they're so drunk that I'll go to drop it off their table, and they'll be like, I didn't order this.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't care. You're still paying for it.
Well, I worked at a restaurant in Ireland with a chef, classically trained chef, and he had that about anybody who ordered meat well done. He'd like, well, get the shitty meat for them if they ordered the meat well done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get them the shittiest cut possible. They're not even going to taste it.
The worst is when people order meat well done and then ask why their food's taking so long. And I'm like,
you want it cooked more.
It takes heat. I cannot change the laws of thermodynamics. If you want it cooked more, I have to cook it more.
So yeah, but that changed the way, because I always ordered well done because that was what my mother ordered. And after working with him, I was like, oh yeah, no, okay. When my mom came to visit, I said, look, she's going to order it well done. Please don't give my mom the shitty meat. Please don't.
I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like because a lot of times the shitty meat has more connective tissue in it, and you're because you're cooking it more, you're breaking that down, and so it's going to be chewy anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like it's the reason you use shitty meat for stew meat. Yeah. It's not because it's shitty; it's because the longer cook times help break it down and make it
soft and
stuff.
Yeah. But yes, this is she is correct about this. Drunk people, what's that? Pearls before swine, etc. Like that's a thing in the Bible. Like there is a whole thing in the Bible about that. Where
I don't know that.
Yeah, there's a story where Jesus turns water into wine. You've probably heard this story, and that when they serve the wine, everybody says, "I can't believe you saved the best wine till last. You usually give." I mean, they don't say this in the Bible. I see Zool here. I'm just about to curse him. But you don't give the really bad wine at the end because everybody has had, they're all drunk already. You give the good wine at the beginning, but because, it was miracle wine that Jesus transformed, apparently it was the best wine, and it was served at the end of like a 3-day wedding ceremony. So yes, it's a biblical principle that you don't give drunk people good food.
No, they don't appreciate it.
No.
Even people who know that, a lot of people I know will start with a good beer and then switch to Budweiser.
Yeah,
it's like after the first couple of good beers, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What's the joke? I'm the inverse Jesus. He turned wine into water. I turned water into wine. No, damn it! I got that backwards.
I did it in my head.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I'm not going to correct that. I'm just going to leave that out there.
All right, good.
I'm working on turning my wine into water now.
Sounds good.
Actually, this is tea.
Yeah. I'm drinking iced tea, so.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. When I drink, my face goes funny. So.
Oh, I thought you mean your digital face goes funny because the glass is in front. I thought you meant when I drink, my face feels weird because my face goes numb. I was
no.
I mean, that happens to a lot of people when they're drinking. Yeah, no.
I was just talking about the reaction on my memoji.
Memoji, yes. Well, it works in both situations.
Yes.
That's, your face goes numb. It's weird in both cases.
Yeah.
So he walks into Bragita, and the next thing I have is the flashback.
Yeah.
I went back to The Great Hunt.
Okay. Because I did not.
The Great Hunt is told from Rand's perspective.
Okay.
And while the events are the same, this is very much a retelling of those events. This is a rewriting of that scene. So this is a fun one because you do actually get to see it from Matt's perspective.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed in this book is this is the first book where Jordan has really gone back and rewritten some scenes from different perspectives. With Egwene, he actually did it from the same perspective, which was weird.
Okay.
The freeing of Moghedian happens twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a weird rewrite. But then we get a couple of scenes like this where like we get Matt having a flashback to a scene that we saw from
a
Rand's
different perspective. Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, I enjoyed it. Like, I actually didn't realize it. If I'd gone back, I would have picked up on this, but I didn't go back, and I felt like it was exactly the way I pictured it in my head, so it was the same. But you're absolutely right. Of course, it has to be from Matt's perspective, and yeah, so it would be retold. Oh, this is cool. So yeah, now I'm looking at it to try and see what would be different, but because he's pulling out all the different heroes. We've got here, I don't know that I would have done this before I was making content, but now that I am, I'm looking at this like Mikkel of the Pure Heart. Who is that a reference to? Like, I'm feeling like all of these have to be, they have to be someone. Right?
Most of them are, yeah. And I mean, Michael, Angel Michael,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, clearly. Shivan the Hunter, like Shiva,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
The Destroyer.
Yeah, Shiva the Destroyer, yeah. Kalain the Chooser. Amarusu, I've been told, is a reference to a Japanese goddess of the sun or something.
That makes sense to me. I feel like I've heard that reference before.
Yeah. And
Pedro.
Yeah, that would be St. Patrick, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Golden Tongue Peacemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, tons of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to... I'll read the Great Hunt version really quick.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Matt's hand shook as he raised the horn of Lear to his lips. It was a clear note. Golden as the horn was golden. The trees around them seemed to resonate with it and the ground under their feet. The sky overhead, that one long sound encompassed everything. Out of nowhere, a fog began to rise. First thin wisps hanging in the air, then thicker billows and thicker until it blanketed the land like clouds. Versus... There was no hope with Shan-Chan to the west and White Cloaks to the east. No hope and only one chance. So he raised the curled horn and blew, not really knowing what to expect. The sound came as golden as a horn. That's similar. Mm-hmm. So sweet he did not know whether to laugh or cry. It echoed and the earth and heaven seemed to sing. While that one pure note hung in the air, a fog began to rise, appearing from nowhere. Thin wisps, thickening, billowing higher until all was obscured, as if clouds covered the land.
Yeah, there's a repeat of some of the language, like thinning.
Yeah,
but that's good, like because it feels really like it's the same scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're describing it in the same way, and it seems pretty clear that he must have opened up the book and had that open while he was writing that reference.
Yeah,
scene. And then there's quite a bit more of lowering the horn and men racing about, and men not all in armor and women. Their clothes and weapons came from every age, but he knew them all. Roguish Eagle Eye, Geidel Kane, Bragita, more. Mm. We get some of them were so different you not recognize them as names. Blah 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 blah. Michael instead of Mikkel, Patrick instead of Pedrig, Oscar instead of Oteran. Mm-hmm. So he actually knows different names for some of these people.
Right. Okay.
Interesting.
If you have it there, I'm curious to know, like, because the other one was from Rand's perspective. Are there names that Rand has that are not here? Like,
yes.
Yeah, okay, that's cool to me. Because, like, obviously, these are people from history, right? So they would, we all have our favorite historical figures, at least I'm assuming we all do, that we would that we would recognize. Like, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's King Sejon, and that, like, recognizing, and you would recognize somebody else from a group of, like, that's kind of cool.
Like Roguish Eagle Eye, not mentioned in this chapter.
Yeah.
Geidel Kane, not mentioned in this chapter.
chapter, yeah.
And then Oscar Oteran,
right,
not mentioned in this chapter.
Okay. That's cool. I like that. I like that they notice different people.
Whereas, I think Matt mentions a few that Rand doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Asamaru and Shivan.
Shivan, yeah. You didn't say her name, or his name.
And Kaelin, yeah.
Okay.
So all of those, there's definitely there's a bunch of not, and at that point, I don't know how much those names might be from Matt's memories, and as he's thinking back,
that's true, yeah.
That maybe at the time he didn't recognize them, but now in his memory he does. Mm-hmm. That's such a weird concept.
Yeah, that is. But either way, I like it just as these are different people. They have different interests and they would notice different things. I like that. Yeah.
Jordan's so good at the POV.
Oh gosh, yeah. So good at that.
And what follows, I think, is Just one of the best buddy situations ever.
What follows is a scene that literally I put it on one of my videos as I think it was on my goosebump moments. Like I love the way this scene is, and I worry, or not worry is the wrong word. I'm curious as to how they will do this on the show, because I love the reveal that Matt's speaking the old tongue, and so if they just have them speaking the old tongue, you ruin the reveal, right? Yeah. And I love that that's a reveal for us and for him, and I love that there are clues to it, and like suddenly his grammar changes and his syntax, and I love it every single time. Like it happens in the Redstone Door as well, and it's
wonderful.
It's wonderful.
That he speaks. Yeah. And not to mention the fact that both of them have these memories where they like. He gets her references. Mm-hmm. Nobody gets her references.
Yeah.
No, right? Like, and so for me, this is very much, it feels a little bit like two Wheel of Time fans finding each other. And like, yes. You make a reference to like, Tanchico or something like that. And the other person is like, I know what you mean.
Yes.
And you're like, you do? And they're like, yes. And then all of a sudden you go drinking out for the night and you're very hungover the next day on Swovian night.
Yes,
so like, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know how they're going to do the POV reveals. Certainly there's got to be some POV stuff with like whether you're in a channeler's POV or not.
Yeah.
Whether you see the flows.
Yeah. Like what I would like, but it's one of those things of just the way the time constraints. I would like this scene to happen in English and then have her be like, what language do we speak? And then he goes back and hears it again in the old tongue. But that's like, well, I mean, you wouldn't have to do the whole scene again, but that's just wasting screen time for a moment that I just think is really cool. But I really want it because I want the reveal.
Yeah, because all you really need to do is flash back to the first scene when he says hi and she greets him in the old tongue and he responds in the old tongue.
Yeah.
You only need like a sentence or two of conversation to be like, oh, they just reshoot it in the old tongue and then and show that and be like, oh, the whole conversation was in the old tongue.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. 무슨 언어 우리말 해? 트럼펫을 치는 사람.
Speak what language, sounder of the horn?
Yes.
It's wonderful.
That was it. That was it in Korean. Yes, not the old tongue.
But it certainly sounded like it. I'm curious how they're going to do the old tongue. I heard they were building it out as a more finished, extensive language.
Yeah, I heard that. Like I saw Sarah on the Dusty Wheel, I think, talking about how like she was. I don't think for like just as for fun was trying to expand on the old tongue as a language. I don't know if they've hired like a linguist to create the full language. But like Jordan definitely put a lot of there's a lot of effort into it, except it's not a full language. So you would have to build it out and make more grammar and syntax and stuff to make it work. But they could do it.
Or they could just use Korean.
I mean, they could.
I'm throwing that idea out there.
You could. It might upset things a little bit because, true heart of Manetheren, like Taishir Manetheren would become Chinsha Samjin. It suddenly changes a little bit.
It does change a little bit. Yeah. It's going to be hard to be Taishar.
Yeah.
Taishar Manetheren, yeah.
So,
maybe a blend of the two.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I love, sorry, I've got it open here as well. Like, I just love, like, I was ripped out on Timely Horn Sounder. Like, I love the way, like, it's just such a cool, I don't know. I love this whole passage. It's not even all that, I mean, it's significant in their relationship, but everything about it, I love the way they speak. I love the grammar. I love the way it sounds.
I weary of secrets, Bragita. Matt doesn't talk like that.
No, he doesn't.
Except when he's talking in the old tongue.
Yep. It's so good. I love it. Although, yeah, I love that she calls him out on it too, because he's being a bit of a hypocrite here. He's like,
absolutely, he's being a hypocrite.
Like, why won't they tell me everything? Why don't you tell everybody everything? Well, screw you.
Yeah. Like, what kind of secrets are you went through the doorway, right? Like, where did you get the Terangrial?
Yeah. What happened to your neck?
Yeah. And all that stuff about the luck that he hasn't told anybody.
Yep.
Like, he's got so many secrets.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not telling him, he's the independent guy. He gets to keep his secrets. They're the dependent women. They have to tell him everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I have thoughts on gender in the Wheel of Time. I don't know if you're aware of this. So
really,
yeah.
Would you like to expand on some of those?
Well, okay, because we've got Bragita here, yes, I
right.
have
I was gonna say
thoughts.
because we have Bragita and Matt. I was gonna say like this is a really good opportunity to talk about the sort of gender dynamic, simply because it's such a non-normal gender dynamic that Jordan diverged from his normal battle of the sexes here.
Yeah, but he did it by making, like, Matt will comment on it that Bragita she's more like a guy. She's masculine, and it frustrates me that throughout the books, like Bragita is one of the more logical and reasonable women, and she's seen that by both people and both sides or both genders, and she is the woman who is most like a man. And that's what makes her more logical. Like it's with other things, like her opinion is seen as, oh no, she, like, between her and say Elayne or Nyneave or whatever, Brigitte's going to have a more sound opinion. But you know, but she's more like a guy, so of course she would. Like, and I don't think he meant to do that, but I think someone pointed this out once on one of my videos, and it was such a cool way of saying this, that Jordan I don't know if he did. I actually, according to stuff I've read, he didn't try to make Wheel of Time into a matriarchy. That wasn't his goal. But many people see that as what he was doing.
Well, if you give women power, the natural consequences of that to some people might look like a matriarchy.
Yeah. And a person commented that said, it feels like what a man would think women would want in a matriarchy. Like, and that's, even with this, it's like, yeah, no, if a woman wants to be really cool and awesome, of course she's just going to want to be like a man, right? Like that's what it feels like. Yeah, no, if a woman is the best, like Bragita is the best, she's awesome, it's just going to make her more like a man instead of just making her really cool in her own right. Right? And Bragita is really cool in her own right. There are women like this. Like, I'm not saying that that's not a thing. Like but it's just
my pushback. Only a little pushback on that is that Bragita has to protect the Aes Sedai who think they're invincible, and so she ends up having to be a little more sensible because she is in that protector role. Not necessarily because she's acting like a man, but that's traditionally a man's role, and so But it is like, it's not even just with the protection stuff. Like when she first comes in, one of the first things she says, like does, is convince Nyneave to wear a revealing dress, and like it's her opinion comes across as like, oh, come on. If you don't want to like show off your bosom, what, you don't like being a woman? And it's meant to come, like, it comes across in the narrative as, yeah, no, that's her opinion is logical in this, instead of, you know what, not everybody wants to wear that. And why is it because she says it that it comes, like, Nynaeve's reluctance to wear the dress feels more unreasonable than Brigitte's encouraging her to wear a dress that makes her uncomfortable. Well, and that goes a little bit with the sort of pointing at the prudishness of the two rivers, and the woolen dresses and the long stockings, and sort of and in a way making that equivalent to the like Victorian era. Ooh, she showed an ankle, you know, and then them going out into the real world where there's silks and high-heeled boots and short dresses and pantsuits and stuff like that. And like, I feel like what he's trying to do there is show like almost that they're stuck in a sort of backwards culture of dress. Not necessarily trying to say like, oh, if you're not showing off your boobs, you're being. But again, yes, that's what Brigida does specifically say. You got to show off your boobs, or else you don't like being a woman. Like exactly. That's what she says, and I have this whole thing. I mean, it has nothing to do with this chapter, but it's a frustrating thing to me that every single woman who has an arc with her clothes, and it's a very superficial thing, but several women do have a part of their growth is how they change the way they dress. And it all happens the same way. Not a single woman ever goes, you know what? I started off wearing really revealing clothes and I've decided I want to be comfortable and casual. They all go from being like, I'm covering up, to I'm going to wear really, really tight pants that show off my ass, or I'm going to wear like lower things, or I'm going to wear skimpy, like every single one of them goes more feminine, more revealing. Amathera.
Okay. But Amathera, not a main character.
Yes.
And she was
did
also
suffer from extensive trauma.
Extensive trauma. Sorry, I don't see the context of what this happened. I just read a sentence in the chat and it cracked me up. Sorry.
We are fragile and can't handle our big dicks being devalued. That's very true.
Okay. I'm sorry. Your dicks have immense value. I am a lesbian, so not to me personally.
Not to you.
I'm sure to some. So.
there's a segment of the population that appreciates them.
Yes. Yes.
Not all of whom are women.
No. So, but okay, back to this scene, because I love this scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's such a great scene, yeah. What do you think about one of them, him being like, oh, I can use a drink, and her being like, me too, and that being him being astonished about that? Like, again, I feel like women drink booze is not like this incredibly remarkable thing that should only be applied to Bragita, who acts like a man.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the point you're making. Yeah, I mean, like, I do love that, oh my god, yes, a woman finally is just like, yeah, let's go get a drink. But, like, it shouldn't just be Bragita.
Yeah.
The fact that the other women are like, oh, I had a bad experience once, so I don't
do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, the way that women are characterized feels very outdated. Though I just said this a couple of days ago in my server as well. Like it reminds me a lot of my dad. Like the way Jordan portrays women reminds me a lot of my dad. My dad's a good guy. My dad would never think of himself as demeaning women or anything like that. But also the last time I saw him, he was like, you're the only woman I've ever met who doesn't carry a purse. And like expected, and it was upsetting to him, not so much because I didn't carry a purse, although he kept saying like, it's more feminine because I kept everything in my pockets, but also that I should be carrying his stuff because that's what he's used to, is women have purses so he can put his stuff in the woman's purse that he's with. And like,
wow.
Yeah. And it was one of those like, oh yeah, like my dad's not a bad person. He's just old fashioned. And he
just expects to be taken care of.
in that way. And that women will do that. And that's part of this is like, women don't get drunk because they have to be the responsible ones to take care of men so that men can have fun.
Go get drunk.
Yeah, get drunk. And it's old fashioned. It's an old fashioned, outdated, and uncomfortable from our perspective. At least I would hope from a modern perspective.
Well, and one of the reasons why I think that Bragita is such a breath of fresh air is that he puts these barriers up, this like, oh my god, this frustration, eye rolling of, I don't just go have a drink with him, you know? And finally somebody does, you know? And it's just, why couldn't they have done that themselves rather than sending Bragita?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I would love to see Nyneave and Elayne sitting down and being like, well, we had a bad experience, but let's, let's have let's toss it back and put some of these fucking skeletons under the carpet. That didn't make sense, but
all of the metaphors went in that one. Yes.
It's too hot in the kitchen, so let's sweep these skeletons under the rug.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you. That was great.
But yeah, no, I can see where that would be a little more cathartic in their overall relationship.
Yeah.
But it is super important that they do reconcile and that the girls do go visit him to sort of engage the Taviraness that leads them to Satalanon.
Yeah.
I love what Bragita says about his accents, where one sentence you're an Aaron High Prince and the next you're a First Lord of Manetheren. Accent and idiom perfect. And that's just like, she must be able to suss out so much about what he is actually experiencing and where those memories are coming from by realizing how that relates.
This time around, listening to this, because that's how I did this, I listened to it, it made me think about, Bragita is called Bragita because of, like, was that her last appearance in the world, was as Bragita? Because listening to this, it's like, she must have come back in between, like,
many times, with many different names.
Exactly. Yep. So why is Bragita the name that everybody knows her by?
I had this debate, and I don't know. We came to a couple of conclusions, but I think the most likely is it was her last life, or at least the last life in which she was well known.
Okay, so would that have been like Age of Legends, or was it?
Well, she's come back since then.
That's what I mean. She has to have come back since then.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit also of all the heroes of the Horn have to choose one of their lives to appear as.
I guess. Okay.
Right, like. How do they? There's a lot of I've debated that, and I don't have an answer for you, which is I don't know. Like I'm assuming because it's Teleron Riyadh, there's some residual self-image to make a Matrix reference.
I guess
going on. Like there's something, whatever they see themselves as is what they look like.
Yeah, like, I never thought about that until literally yesterday when I was listening to that, going, wait a minute, because Matt's memories are not from before the Age of Legends, so
nope.
She has to,
And Bragita, we know Bragita as Bragita. No, she had a different name when she foiled. No, she must have been Bragita. She was Bragita when she foiled
Morgedian.
Morgedian.
That's what I mean. Okay, yeah, that's what right. because if she was Bragita when she foiled Mogedi, and then she was Bragita during the Age of Legends, which means that,
and we know she's been spun out since then.
Yeah. So it must be what you're saying. Like, they must just decide. Or was that just her last biggest heroic? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I've had this debate, and it is definitely one of those debates that I think, it's a sit down with Robert Jordan and ask him this debate, and he's going to tell you to go, have a relationship, right? Like,
yeah.
It's one of those things where he's like, they're just the heroes. They're who they are. What do you mean? Like, okay, here's a legitimate answer, which is, Rand is Louis Theron. It was always him the whole time. That's who he is, no matter, physically they may look a little different and they may have different names, but that's who that person is. There is no way there, I guess the only thing we're debating is appearance.
Yeah. So somebody has a suggestion here is maybe the Tel'aran'rhiod image is the one they got sucked. I like the fact that they got sucked into the horn. Sorry, it's just an interesting way of putting it.
Right.
But yeah.
They went down the tube. But yeah, when they got linked to the horn is sort of how I'm thinking about it. Like, Noel will always be Noel no matter how many times he's reborn, because that's the life that made him linked to the horn.
Right.
So maybe Bragita wasn't. But I feel like Bragita was linked to the horn long before the Age of Legends, right? She had many, many, many lives before that.
I was about to say that. Like, I like this as a theory. However, I feel like, Bragita has too many memories for it to only be 3,000 years. Because unless she's like literally like dying and immediately coming back, it's just not enough. And we know that she's not doing that because she spends time in Tel'aran'rhiod.
Right. She's waiting for looking. She's like, oh, when Gaidal Cain is reborn, I know my time is coming. Right.
So it's a good theory, but I don't think it works with. No. Again, I honestly doubt, Jordan spent as much time thinking about this as we are, because this is it's just floofy magic. It's dream world floofy magic.
Exactly. But it's whatever they think of themselves as.
Yeah.
And like that's the convenient answer. Yeah. And I can't come up with a better one.
Mm-hmm. I can't either.
But it feels flimsy. It feels like, no, it should be their last big life where they or the life where they got paired. Like, those are both very logical white Ajah ways of approaching the problem.
Yeah.
That's not a white Ajah problem.
No. So, okay. Yeah, but I do like that as well, that he switches accents, although it makes me think of Fane, to be honest. So, yeah.
And I feel like Rand, too, changes style. He'll occasionally come out with, Lord of the Age of Legends a little bit.
Yep. But Rand is mad. Rand is going crazy. So it's just funny that this is, Matt is not going crazy, at least not particularly. But...
Yeah, but he's better integrated. It's funny to compare the two, that they're both integrating real, legitimate memories. Mm-hmm.
But Matt doesn't have a full life. Like, I think he just has memories from people, but he doesn't ever, at least this is how I understand it, and I'm pretty sure this is canon, that he doesn't know anybody's full life. He knows memories from different people.
Agreed.
So... he's not like integrating a full personality in there.
Yeah. Well, and he says at one point he never even has memories of before they go into the doorway.
Yeah, before they go into the doorway, yeah. I think that's a Sanderson thing, though. I think.
Yeah, but I remember there was a lot of speculation about that in the olden days. Like, people were definitely aware that, like, he never has memories of being a kid.
Yeah.
Like, he has memories of dying. Like, that whole thing that Sanderson pointed out in writing, which is, like, he has no memories younger than a certain age, and all his memories... Like, people definitely were aware that, like, there's probably something to do with not... Like, he's getting memories from people who went through the doorway. Yeah. I remember that being a point of speculation. It wasn't confirmed, but that was people, like, they're getting the memories from people who go through the doorway. They're getting them after they go through the doorway, which is why he doesn't have any kid growing up memories. Like, that was all speculated on and canon, and Sanderson made it canon.
Yeah, well, it's like that reason I say I feel like it's a Sanderson, because Sanderson likes like very concrete rules. It's one thing I've noticed with him. So like him making that concrete feels like I don't like that might have been Jordan's plan all along, but I don't know that he ever would have made it as concrete as Sanderson.
Yeah, I feel like Jordan had hard lines, but he didn't draw them for you.
Yeah.
Like, he always knew that was the boundary. He knows in his head that's how it works, but he's never going to point that out to you.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out through examples that may or may not be...
there.
Or obvious.
Obvious, yeah.
Which is why I think his joke about who killed Asmodean, well, it's obvious. Like, I really do think he was just trolling. I really think he was trolling. Like... He loved doing that shit and being like, well, it's obvious when he like knows it's no way in hell. It's not obvious. It's not obvious.
I had a bumper sticker on my car for a while that said, I killed Asmodean.
Obviously.
Yes. Got it at a con. So.
God, if I saw that bumper sticker, I'd just be like, hi! Who are you? I don't know you, but I love you.
Nobody ever did that. People probably just were like, what the hell? Oh, yeah. Who's this Asmodean person, and why is she confessing to his murder?
Is she misspelling one of the devils of the Bible?
Maybe.
What's going on
there? Yeah.
So they go drinking, and we flash to the girls.
Yes.
So they're all closeted in their apartments with Tom and Julian. So I'm thinking in JordanCon this year, I'm going to go as Tom and Julian. Because I have a water cloak, and I'm just going to put on a fez and carry a bamboo staff.
Okay.
And go as a Gleeman thief catcher.
Right. You mean you have a Gleeman cloak?
Yeah. What did I say? Water cloak?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a Gleeman cloak, and so like I like the idea of like combining them and being like, yeah, I'm Tom and Julian.
Yeah.
Because they're always together. They're always paired together. Like there's. And so I was trying to think like I've got the Gleeman cloak. What can I do with it that's a little unique? Yeah, throw a fez on and grab a staff of bamboo, which you can get just about anywhere. And just call or just the fez, and just be like, yeah, I'm Tom and Julian.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I think that works well. I think it works very, very well. So.
I want to start a trend of combined costumes, right? Like, I'm Nyneave and Elayne.
I was just thinking some weird costumes you could combine. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, what's the one that's like the Ariel Burgess transition poster of Moraine?
Yeah.
Someone did that costume, and that is a little bit half Tom, half Moraine, because she's got the Gleeman cloak on one shoulder. Yeah, that was such a good costume. Oh my god.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was really well done. It was like they just cosplayed that drawing, and like that was really impressive.
Yeah, it's really cool. There is when we flash back, I think we're in Nynaeve's mind, right? To the girls, yes. And there's like a throwaway line in here that I really, again, listening to this yesterday, it's a line that I don't know that I'd ever noticed before. It jumped out at me. They didn't go to this dance or festival that Tylan was holding. And Nynaeve says that she would have really liked to go because only a fool passed up any chance to dance. And I just love this, just all the things that we know about Nynaeve, suddenly getting this, you know what, she really likes to have fun and dance. Like that's such a light, and it doesn't fit with this, I'm a prudish girl who's really angry all the time and no, she likes to dance.
And it references in Eye of the World when Rand notices that she dances, and he's like, she never dances in the Two Rivers. And just how sad that must have been. She loves dancing.
Yeah.
And she could never dance as
the wisdom. Yeah. Like, I loved this just as like a little, this is another thing about Nynaeve that like most people probably don't know. That even her friends probably don't know that, Nynaeve would love to go out and dance anytime she has a chance. She thinks it's stupid to give up chances to dance. And I love that.
See, now I'm just picturing Nynaeve and Elayne and Aviendha, like...
Yes, I was just about to say. Picturing them at the club.
And then being approached by a creepy girl and Aviendha whipping out the knife, or creepy guy and Aviendha whipping out and being like, I don't think so.
Yeah, no. We're just here to have fun. None of you.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I just like it.
And Elayne would have a tiara on.
Of course.
She's the princess.
She is. Her nose would be up a little bit, and she just looked around the club. I try to, like, Nynaeve would be like throwing hands, like she's dancing arms up and everything.
Oh, totally. And totally. Some guy would try and grind up on her, and she'd just flip his ass.
Yeah. Yes. And Elaine's just standing beside her, doing like a little sidestep, just back and forth, just.
And Nynaeve would definitely kick somebody who got too close to her, and then Elayne would like try and soothe them. And
yes,
it's okay, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you know how Nynaeve sleeps with her elbows out. I have done that in a club once where I was getting crowded in, and I just decided to dance very elbowy to make space, and that would be Nynaeve.
Oh my god, she would totally throw elbows and like actually hurt somebody and be like, "Oops, sorry."
Yes.
Oh god, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
And one of the things things that I really like about Matt and Nyneave is when Jordan makes them very similar.
Yeah.
They both love to dance, right? They're both, in a lot of ways...
Well, I think Matt and Nyneave are really similar. And I think like it doesn't get... People often don't notice it because they are also, like, they don't notice it. They don't see how similar they are. But they both lie to themselves constantly. Like, you know, we talked about Matt looking at the jute sack. And
they're the biggest hypocrites.
Yeah, they lie to themselves about themselves. Like, they don't just lie to themselves about other people. They literally, like, Matt's, I'm not a hero. I'm not going to do that. And Nyneave's like, well, I know better than everybody else. Except, like, at least in my mind, she's in her mind going, well, I probably don't know anything, and I'm probably really bad at this, and I'm probably going to suck at it. I'm probably going to fail. I know better than everybody else. Like, that's, I think she's lying to herself a lot, and Matt is doing the same thing.
It's all those scenes where she has that sheep's tongue wart on her tongue, or whatever
it is. Yeah.
What that foul taste is that she gets.
Yeah.
When she has self-doubt, or whenever she's lying to herself about what's going on. And she really has to change her self-talk in order to not be as hypocritical.
Yeah.
And Matt, as well, has to, admit that he's a bloody lord. Like, there's that same sort of journey they both have to go through to be less hypocritical about their own motivations.
And, like, Nyneave also, the same, like, Matt will throw himself in danger to save people without even thinking about it. It doesn't get noticed as much with Nyneave, but she, like, does the exact, like, her first instinct in every situation is sacrifice myself. Like, when Moghedien is, torturing her, Nyneave, like, it's not even that she thinks, oh my gosh, I'm about to die. This is, like, she thinks, okay, I'm going to die so I can warn Egwene. Like, her death is like a byproduct, an accident. Like, she doesn't even care. Like, Elayne, I'm going to die to warn Elayne. Like, it's always her first instinct is, and it's the same with Matt. His first instinct is, friend, danger, save. Her first instinct is friend, danger, save. Like, it's exactly the same.
It's like when Bragita goes back into the dream, and Nyneave is like, thinks for half a second about leaving her and has so much shame about that.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course everyone would think about
like,
that. That's
for like
an option.
half a second.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, but you never would, and you put yourself in immense danger to distract Moghedien long enough for Bragita to get away.
Yeah.
Right? Like, self-sacrifice. Yeah, absolutely.
They are mirrors of each other, I think. Like, very much mirrors of each other, which is one of the reasons that I don't think they get along. But
right. They see the aspects of themselves they don't like in each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure I've made that point, that the two of them are just like, as in the way that Egwene and Rand are mirrors. I feel like Nyneave and Matt very much are these just sort of mirror characters. The hypocriticalness, the self-sacrifice, the running into a burning building to save children without any regard for your own safety, right? That's what they both do, but will lie to themselves that they'd be willing to do it.
And not even notice that they are doing it. Like, they won't notice their heroism in those moments. Like, they just think that's, like, they are literally, those people on the news that be like, oh, I just did what anybody would do. Like, they, like that, and it always comes off across as like, oh, come on. I actually think with Matt and Nyneave, they're just like, yeah, no, that's just what you do.
Yep. Or Matt would be like, yeah, I had to run in the building and get those children out. Their crying was bloody annoing.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to stop crying, so I got them out of the burning building and dunked them in water because they were crying so much, and it's like, that's not why you did it.
I just like the idea. I dunked the burning children in water. Sorry. Anyway.
Well, I mean, don't burn them. Don't dunk them in gas.
It's smart. So, all right, okay.
We are just having a lot of fun on this
I'm
one.
sorry, I keep going off on tangents.
No, it's great. This is exactly the kind of content we look for.
Okay, good.
There was a reference here about sleeping until wakened with a kiss, but with the Sun King.
Yeah.
With Talia. I mean, a Sleeping Beauty reference.
Yeah, it's
right?
gotta be Sleeping Beauty.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just... I didn't look up Talia and the Sun King, if that's any sort of information.
Yeah, the only thing that I thought is, in Disney she's called Aurora, which is not really, like, it's not the same, but yeah, I didn't look it up either.
What about in Inception? What is that, the girl's name in that?
But Elliot Page?
No, the wife that he is always trying to...
Sorry. I remember really liking that movie, and now it appears that I've completely forgotten.
Right?
Yeah.
Mal. That's right.
Okay.
Not Talia.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it was Talia for a second. I'm not trying to make a connection. It's not there.
Yeah. I do like, though, this is kind of weird, but I find it interesting that she calls it a very improper story. And like this, I mean, I don't know if like Jordan is saying that like would be thinking in his mind that Nynaeve is being ridiculous in this, but it also, yeah, he just walked up to a sleeping woman and kissed her. That's improper. That is an improper thing to do. You don't just kiss a stranger when she's sleeping.
I also think it's not just a kiss.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
In typical Sleeping Beauty, like that whole like awakened with a kiss.
Yeah.
No, she got raped in her sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I like that it's pointed like that is her thought. So, she's not going to be any man's pet. Whatever. Oh, anyway.
I enjoy the retelling of Sleeping Beauty when she wakes up pregnant and pissed.
I have not heard of that one. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That may be in my own head. I don't know if that's something.
I did not see that movie.
Oh, that may be in the original story, actually. That's, knowing Grimm's fairy tales, it's usually like how they start off.
Well, Grimm's fairy tales are quite grim, to be honest.
Appropriate, but not intended.
Yes.
We get a little bit about the Ivory bracelet that Avienda's not wearing. We know that was a gift from Rand, and she doesn't want to wear that because it's basically flaunting, I have a close relationship with Rand that you don't, and you're my near sister, so we need to get you that sort of bracelet, and that's why she's not wearing it anymore. Which
Nynaeve has no idea about, but I this is one of those things I really enjoy. Well, I mean, of the many things in this series, but like when we know information, and so having like just a side bit gives us a fuller picture, but we know that the character that gave us that information doesn't know it. Like, I find that really fun.
And that's one of the great ways that he has like characters through Tel'aran'rhiod or smell or something like that who don't know what's going on but can see the emotions, and then you interpret their emotions based on what you know about those characters.
Yeah. I also like this as someone living in Asia right now. I like that Avienda just keeps sitting on the floor. It's like one of the things I figured out after being here for a while, that like a lot of Korean apartments tend to be a little bit smaller than Western apartments. And even like they will have, when I'm as a Westerner, when I would go looking for a place, they would be like, oh, well, I'll try and find you a Western style apartment. And it will just have like slightly bigger rooms. And one of the reasons for that is because we use a lot more furniture than Korean. Like even the Koreans I know, most of them who have sofas will have the sofa and then they will sit on the floor in front of their sofa. And it's just more comfortable for them. And so they don't need as much space, a lot of them, because they don't have furniture. They're just sitting on the floor.
I used to do that more as a kid.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no,
and it's probably really good for flexibility because I've tried to go to a yoga class here, and I literally had to find a yoga class that was more geared to foreigners because the Korean one was just like, my hips don't do that. No, my hips, I can't do that. What are you doing? Like, I can't bend like that. What? No.
See, that's my experience in all yoga classes.
Yeah,
See,
maybe.
This is me stretching.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I have no flexibility.
Yeah.
I swam in high school and college and built up a fair amount of muscle, but relatively little flexibility.
Right.
And never really put the work in to get it back. So I'm a little more flexible now than I was then, just because I don't have the muscle that I had. So I have more range of motion, but it's not flexibility.
Right. Anyway, that just jumped out at me. Yeah, even when there are chairs available, most of my Korean friends will come over to my place and sit on the floor. And I have a sofa.
Which is also why I assume you take shoes off as well when you go inside.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because even eating is done. Like there's a traditional Korean table is much lower, and you sit on the floor and eat on the table.
Is there a lot of pets, dogs, animals, that sort of thing?
Not as much as back home. That's somewhat of a new, like when I say new, it's like in the last maybe 30 years. Like even in the time that I've been here, I've been here for 8 years. I see more and more pet hospitals and stuff. It's like sort of a booming industry that's happening now.
Because that's the source of most of the dirt in my house.
Right. Yeah.
Timber. Yeah, I end up wearing shoes a lot just because like he tracks in dirt and I don't want to step in that. So it's
right.
It's a whole different philosophy about wearing shoes inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt's letter, there's nothing here but heat and flies, and we can find plenty of those in Camelin. And she freaks out where she's like, are you sure you didn't tell him anything? And it's like, you're obviously looking for something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not hiding that from him.
No,
clearly.
he knows. Yeah.
So But she's freaking out because she thinks that Tom and Julian told him everything.
Well, I think one of Nynaeve's things is that she just wants to have control over, like, like when she feels like she's losing control. I don't mean that like in the face, like she wants to be manipulating and controlling everybody. It's that when she feels like she doesn't have control of her life, it causes her to freak out a little bit. Like her life basically has been spinning out of control ever since she left the Two Rivers. And so in this case, it's a bit of information that she thought she had control of. And now she's afraid that maybe I don't have control of it. And like she's constantly just tightly trying to keep the reins on things because that's the only way she feels safe. And like, that's my interpretation of it anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, they're trying to control a lot. They're young and inexperienced, and they're expected to step up and do some amazing things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Stuff that they, by all right. I mean, it's the it's the Dumbledore thing of just, throw the kids in danger. It's fine. They'll fix it. Like, that's what's happened here. But of course, that's where the story comes from. The story would be quite boring if like, oh, let's send a bunch of really skilled people who know what they're doing to fix the,
like people that make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't have the shield of Ta'Veren.
Yeah.
Unlike the boys.
Yeah. Although they're trying to right now. They're trying to like grab a Ta'Veren to be their shield. So.
Tom is basically saying, oh, so he responds, we couldn't have told him anything. You didn't tell us anything, right?
Yeah.
We just found out about it. You should have sent us to go talk to him. And Nynaeve's like, no, I shouldn't have. And I love that the last line of this chapter is her being like, I knew I should have sent them the whole time. It's absolutely a contradiction of this whole part right here.
It's stuff like this that makes me wonder how people don't see how she's lying to herself constantly. Like people like will go like, oh, she constantly thinks that she's better than everybody. Like, no, that's what she's lying to herself constantly.
And in the next chapter, we get the classic like, I won't shout at you, Nynaeve shout.
Yep.
That is the next chapter of her being hypocritical.
Yeah,
so that's coming real fast.
I mean, that's a great line. So
we get the thing about the wine.
Yes, yet another woman shows her boobies. Although they're not her boobies, they're magical boobies, but still.
Fair enough.
They are boobies.
Yeah. That's interesting. So she's drinking, and she's talking about costumes, and she puts Nynaeve in a topless costume.
Yeah.
Which, she's seen Nynaeve naked. She's probably doing a realistic, like, it's a little bit of just stripping her naked in front of other people.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's not good.
No, I'm not a fan of it at all. Like, I mean, I do actually enjoy the Elayne getting drunk by accident. Like, I like that aspect of it, but there's a thing that it just continually happens where the women are stripped naked and it's played off as, oh, isn't it embarrassing for them and funny for us? Like, it happens a fair bit. And this is just yet another instance of it where...
Just naked enough to get drunk, take off your top, and go dancing on the table.
Yes. Or...
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it feels like. And it feels like... I mean, this is me being incredibly uncharitable. I really don't know, whatever, but it feels like here's a chance, audience. I'm going to write a chance for you to imagine Nynaeve's boobies. Okay, did you imagine them? Did you have fun with that? All right, move on. Like, that's what it feels like to me.
I do like the concept of trying to clip through the illusion that she's jumping around, like literally like a bad video game character trying to like clip through your bad costume and be like, no, this isn't, there's a better costume under here, and like move in weird ways.
I can picture it better now because I've seen it. Like, I've seen people do that now, you know?
Yeah, totally.
It's like when my green screen isn't working and I'm just like, trying to get things to work. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I guess there's a little bit of that with the emoji, totally.
Yeah. So.
Avienda's commenting on Tylan, saying, I did not think her a coward. And Tom gave her an amused smile. You have never faced something you could not fight, child, he said gently. Something so strong, your only choice is to flee or be consumed alive. Try to hold judgment on Tylan until you have. For some reason, Avienda's face reddened.
Yeah, it's Rand.
It's Rand. And her love for Rand.
Yeah.
You know, she has that dream about something monstrous chasing her down. And it consumes her alive, that love. So, yeah. He's very much takes her to task without really meaning
to. Yeah. It's any mention of Tylan is just so ruined for me. It's so frustrating because everybody, like, she's skilled at her job and she's good at what she does and she's a good ruler, and then it's just fuck. Like,
well, so the way I approach it is I look at her as a stage of growth for Matt. that Matt had to basically, at this point, be ready to fall in love with Tuon. And the Matt that we know, who's the gambler, the carouser, is not ready to settle down. He does not want to get married.
Yeah.
And he needs to see women not as an object or something to be scared of, but as people. And he encounters 3 or 4 different people that really help him out with that. And Bragita is the first in this situation. This like, oh, I've been sitting drinking next to her with my thigh pressed against hers, and I haven't tried to sleep with her once, and it hasn't even occurred to me. Wow, women are people too, right? Like, so that's part of it. And then he has to have a power inversion where he realizes not only are women people, but I've been treating them like crap. And the only way for him to realize that is for someone to treat him like crap.
Yeah, okay. I never really thought of him as treating women like crap. I thought of him as just like he, he doesn't really, the women he's been sleeping with, I don't think he's ever left them, he's like campfire rules. He's left them at least as good as...
Better than you found, better than they found him. That's from his perspective.
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
But he's at least sleeping around and assuming that he can, right? There's a certain amount of power dynamic, like not necessarily treating women like crap. I guess that's the wrong way to say it, but sort of like loving him, leaving him, and not making any serious connection. And like, I just feel like he needed to feel used to understand the inverse. I guess,
okay, this is, because for me, this is not this chapter at all, but it took me a while to see this for what it was. Like the way this upset me for the wrong reasons for a long time, and coming to the realization that no, this is rape, this is sexual assault, this is what's happening to him. There are so many stories and movies where that is used as a means of character development for women, and it's exhausting and problematic, and like, that's not a good thing to happen to you for your growth. And I don't. It could be that's what's... I would even agree with you, because especially because it is mirrored with the Bragita. I do think it was meant to be women are behaving differently. Some people will say that they think that Jordan was trying to expose the double standards in the way, sexual assault towards women and sexual assault towards men is perceived. I don't... Because of the way it's written and because of the way the narrative treats it, I don't necessarily know that he did. But I do think you're right. I think he was meaning to give the two different perspectives on women, like on the way women can behave. I don't.
And I also think he was trying to grow Matt's character.
Through those.
But it's still a problematic interaction, but he does grow and develop. And then I also add in like Aludra. Right?
Yeah.
Someone who's skilled technician who he respects and thought of sexually, but then doesn't anymore. And like, there's a whole scene where he's like, if I wasn't single, I would totally, but that's not going to happen anymore. Yeah. And so like, you see a progression of Matt's attitude towards women, and that partially happens through these interactions, starting with this one, Bragita. And that's why I want to talk about it in particular, because I feel like this is really the beginning of his transition to then when he meets Tuon, this third or fourth very important woman in his life. All of a sudden, the idea of this is going to be my wife, this is someone I have to be with, how do I get her to respect me and love me? I feel like he does that through the lens of the way he was treated by Tylan.
Right.
And the understanding that women are people too through Bragita. And like, without those two things, there's no way he could have successfully wooed Tuon.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I still hate it though. I get
entirely, yes.
Yeah.
I try and look at it like, why, not necessarily put a value judgment on what happened, but why did he write that into the story?
Yeah. I do agree with you. I do think that it was intentional. I do think it was meant to be a power inversion. I just, Anyway, okay. This is not about Tylan, but this mention of Tylan at this point, I'm trying to, because she is competent as a leader, and I like at this point, I think, was I aware? Oh gosh, sorry, I get lost with when things happen. Where with what she had she been?
She's been aggressively flirting with him in front of her son.
Okay,
but that's it.
That's it. Okay, yeah. So at this point, I probably liked her, like the first time I read it, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah, she's just a sexually aggressive woman who really likes. Yeah.
The first time I read it, first 10 times I read it, I never didn't like her. You know, especially as an introverted, shy kid, I was like, oh, I hope somebody eventually like stands up and like seduces me. That would be great. You know, force me to be your lover. Yay! Like, I don't, you know, there's a part of me that like was into that, right, as a kid, because that was what I assumed. I didn't understand relationships, right? Like, but yeah, there's something to be said for the way she has complete control over sex life. Like, that's, if she wants to fuck somebody, she has the agency to go do that, and that's something very freeing. And you're seeing that with Bragita as well, someone who's like all into ugly guys, but all, you know, is only willing to sleep with the one person, but is totally willing to look. And like there's some liberation of the women that he's trying to put in there.
Like, I would have preferred, like, because I like that liberation. I also like, Bragita should have slept with people. Like,
yeah, totally. She's like, yeah, I mean, I kind of headcanon that she does. Yeah. That, like, I you know, I ship her and Uno a little bit, you know. Like, while she was waiting around for Guidal Kane, like, you know, Uno wouldn't have kicked her out of bed, I guarantee that.
No, not at all. But because that is another thing that just happens a fair bit, where the women are completely loyal to the men, and the men can do other, like, it's, you know.
That's such a fantasy trope,
it's a very fantasy thing. Yeah. So... Anyway.
Because women are the rewards for the men.
Yeah. Anyway. Sorry, okay. I'm just scrolling through it. Even that clipping through the thing, it is funny. I just don't like that it's boobies. Once again, her boobies being shown around. But the way she, like, the strangled squawk erupted from her throat as she's like jumping around, it does make me laugh. It is funny. I don't know.
There's some real physical humor to Nyneave. And some,
yes.
Yeah. Some pratfalls, some, you know, what makes it funny to see someone get kicked in the nuts. You know, that Nyneave embodies that a little bit, even if it's not great, you know. Yeah. So she tries to shield Elayne. Interesting that she fails. Yeah. It just shows you how powerful Elayne must be, considering she shielded Moghedien when Moghedien had the source.
That is true. Huh. But I think she also, like, was being... I don't think she would be using as much force with Elayne, because, like, she's not trying to hurt Elayne.
I'm also thinking that she used a sharp edge, and if that's much more dangerous and probably requires less power, whereas she'd probably use something pretty blunt with Elayne, so as not to accidentally sever her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, she's being careful, but... I liked the description of how it feels. Like, the power is one of those things that, you know, I'm sure all of us, when reading this, tried to imagine it. And, like, the description of,
slamming a hammer.
The slamming the hammer. Yeah. It's just like that. That's a very good and apt description. Like, I can feel that. I can totally feel that.
We've all smacked something that reverberated back up our arms at one point or another. We've all missed what we wanted to hit and had that feeling of like, that was not what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
The next thing I have is Brigitte's return. Mm-hmm. So she walks in. She outdrank Matt, who outdrank Beslin, I'm guessing. Interesting that Matt, going from a non-drinking villager, a year and a half ago, to this, like, heavy drinking... I mean, we've seen his evolution.
Yeah,
but,
I had canon that he was drinking in the Two Rivers as well. Like,
yeah, probably. Some of that hard cider that they got into.
Some of that hard cider. He probably also had a couple of, hay rolls back in the Two Rivers as well. Like, I don't think of him as leaving at the Two Rivers as
innocent as the others.
Yes, I was just laughing at myself with how many as's were going to be in that sentence. He didn't leave as innocent as the others. Yeah. So yes.
What an ass.
I'm not a drinker, so I'm going to ask: does splashing your face with water help?
No.
No. Okay.
It's a psychological thing.
Okay.
And no more so than splashing your water at any time kind of wakes you up. It gives you that little jolt of adrenaline.
Okay.
And the one thing I have read is if you look at people who do breath holding contests, a lot of times, even if they're not going underwater, they will submerge their face in ice water, and it creates a physiological effect that slows down your metabolism for a second. Okay. And so it certainly apparently there's a scientific name for it, but there is a reaction your body gets when your face is submerged in water that does help you hold your breath longer. It has some other physiological effects, but I think for the most part, in terms of being drunk, no, that's one of those myths that drinking a cup of coffee or going for a walk or taking a cold shower, it's all myths. None of that stuff makes you any more sober for any more than a 3 second, or slapping someone's face who's drunk. It's all just TV myths.
Okay.
And maybe it gets you more alert in terms of if you've ever been kind of sleeping out of it and suddenly like your boss walks in and you're like, you get that jolt of awakeness, like sure, you can get there, but I don't think it's ever going to be, it doesn't eliminate the alcohol from your bloodstream.
Okay. I was just, that when I saw this, she's like poured water on her head. I was like, I don't know.
Nope, entirely a trope. And
Okay.
From all sorts of TV.
Yeah. Okay.
The bond's not supposed to work that way, right?
Yeah.
Elayne is not supposed to get drunk. I assume it's the women to women thing.
Yes, I think that was the idea. I think this is another one of those things that just I love this series. I don't like this. No, men and women have to, because they have to balance each other. What it reminds me of is, I'm gonna get into my own history or whatever, but I am a lesbian. I referenced the Bible earlier. I grew up very religious, and I remember hearing sermons about how, no, the reason like two women or two men can't be together is because you must have a man and a woman, because that is how God designed it, because men and women are inherently different. And so they balance each other. And that's what this feels like to me. It's like, no, it's working wrong because this is not how it's supposed to be. You always have to have one man and one woman so that they can balance each other. And that it could just be that it's rubbing a sore point in my own history that this bothers me, but sure. I still like what happened, but it's just frustrating that it's.
And don't forget about circles, 1 man and 13 women.
Yeah.
That's the correct balance, right? There's a certain amount of like, you need a lot of women to balance out 1 man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is irritating. There is later on where and I love this, what I was going to bring, where their cycles line up. What is it? The word that they use? Do they say cycles, or is there another word?
Cycles.
Yeah,
yep.
I love that. It's like, oh, the first time I've ever read a fantasy or sci-fi like where they referenced periods. Like, yes, all these women walking around for ages. You're telling me this never came up? Like,
so then there's my question: as someone who is not a period haver, is the cycles syncing up something that is a story? Because like I've read both in various serious scientific papers. That is a myth, and that is something that can happen. So, I've had people swear up and down that something can happen, but I've read that it's a myth. So I'm torn, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I know. Okay, when I lived with those roommates in university, one of my roommates had an insanely regular cycle, like to the point like it was 9 a.m. on Tuesdays.
Right.
But I was incredibly regular when I lived with her, and then I never thought about it until after university, we no longer lived together, and I became incredibly irregular. And I used to joke, "Oh, thank you. Like you pulled me into your cycle when we lived together. I appreciated that." Because I don't know. I've heard both. I've heard it debunked by scientific papers, and I've heard, no, it totally happens.
And so looking at the chat, Margot is saying it's a myth as far as she knows. It's a badly replicated study from women's college and posting some facts. Zool is saying that's 100% does happen.
Yeah.
But there's a whole debate. I've also seen the debate about like it is a little bit of confirmation bias because, cycles happen and cycles tend to sync up, and even when they're out of sync, you tend to dismiss it as an out of sync thing.
Right.
And, like there's a whole debate about human psychology and like how it is very easy to deceive yourself into thinking two random events are syncing up even though they're not necessarily.
Yeah.
So
and like even like when I lived with my roommate, when I said I was very regular, I didn't say I started at the same time as her. It's just I was incredibly regular. Like I could predict when it was happening, and the minute we weren't living together, I couldn't anymore. And so like I wasn't starting at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. I think I generally started on a Friday. But it was just, I don't know. It was weird. Sorry.
So it's a question I've asked in multiple places simply because I do get very, very different answers depending on who I ask. So the more I look into it, the scientific consensus seems to say it's a myth based around just number and psychology. But at the same time, I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to come down on a hard side on that one way or the other.
Well, yeah.
I've been told. Yeah.
And even like as a woman, I would say it's also not that important.
No, yeah. No, the only reason I bring it up is because it does come up in these fantasy tropes over and over and over again as this, like, well, you put women together, the cycles go like that and sync up, and I do feel like whether or not it's a thing that can happen, it is highly overused in fantasy and novels, is the point that I'm going to make.
Like, say, I've never seen it in another fantasy book, to be honest. That's what I was going to say. I really like that it was brought up in these books, because it just suddenly was, they are addressing the fact that these women have periods. Thank you. Like, that is an extra thing that these women have had to deal with this entire time. Like, that while they were on those boats traveling together, like, at some point, all of those women were dealing with the fact that they had their periods. And I don't know what technology they were using at this point in time. I mean, granted, it's future, so maybe they have really good period products. I don't know, but I would doubt it. And that's just really, like...
Yeah.
You know, I would get being like, you're a person who gets seasick on a boat and also you have your period. Yeah, I'd be grumpy too.
Like, no wonder Nyneave is so upset.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Although, there's a couple of questions about healing. Both, I actually had 2 questions and now I have 3. Obviously, you can heal being hungover. Yeah. Right? Because we see that, right? Even though Elayne sucks at it. Like, that seems... So, question 1, can you heal being hungover? Yes. Can you heal being drunk? Because that's technically a poisoning.
Yeah, you're right.
So could Nyneave just go up to Matt and be like, you're not drunk anymore?
I bet you, like, just physiologically, yeah, you must be able to. I bet you nobody's thought of it because nobody really thinks of being drunk as poisoning. They want to be drunk intentionally. But yeah, I bet you it could be done.
And then third, can you heal somebody who is, or quote unquote, running their courses? If someone's on the period, could healing maybe help with menstrual cramps and period symptoms?
Yeah, I bet you it could help with the cramps. Like, okay, I will say this, just putting this out. I very, very rarely get cramps, and it's the same with me in headaches. I very rarely get them. Yep. So when I get them, they kill me because I don't know how to handle them. Like, I can't deal with it. So. But for me, even like just talking about the inconvenience of dealing with bleeding, like on the boat would be awful. But I bet you could heal the cramps. I bet you that would be possible.
That'd be interesting to see. That would be fun. You think the yellow and the White Tower would, with all these women.
That's something I bet you has already been explored. I bet you, totally. But drunkenness. Nyneave will, like, of all, Nyneave's going to figure everything out. I feel like Nyneave's going to figure out how to heal stuff that nobody's thought of until
yeah, that drunk could be one of those things. Like, no one's even bothered to think about healing drunk.
Yeah. Sorry, I never thought about that. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, my brain was just going off on that. Yeah, that's a poisoning. You're absolutely right.
My favorite sentence to hear on this podcast is, I never thought about that. Favorite thing to hear. Absolutely my favorite thing to hear.
Excellent. I will remember that. So.
They call Bezlin a boy, even though he's the same age as Nyneave.
Yep.
Yeah. And there is something to be said for women tend to go through puberty before boys do.
Yes.
By a year or 2.
Yeah.
And so there is some, like, maturing maturity earlier. But I think
these women are like 20. Yeah.
Nyneave's 26. So
yeah, but
Elayne... Bezlin's about the same age.
Oh, did they say Nyneave, she was the same age as Nyneave or the same age as Elayne? Because Elaine's like 20.
Oh, yeah, I guess Elaine's the one who's talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would say, now, not by much, but I would still say that, like, a 20-year-old girl probably is, well, they're not
more mature.
Yeah, not like, I don't know. I'm remembering things that, like, the guys at university were doing that made me go, do you not know that you can die? Like, do you not understand that you are a mortal being?
Yeah, what's the reason women tend to live longer, and then videos of men doing dumb things? I think that might not be an age thing. I think that might just be men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. We do dumb shit.
Because that for me, I remember thinking, okay, well, maybe like in a few years, like because I full on remember like guys jumping off of roofs.
Yep. I guess there is that like young and invincible, like before you've ever really seriously hurt yourself, you don't believe you can ever seriously be hurt.
Right.
So there's that immaturity there with young guys. I can see that might not be there for women. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Little Jen makes a good point that women are socially cultured to be more timid, and so like there's a little bit of like how nature versus nurture that we can debate. Of much is there. How much of the difference between men and women is culture, and how much of it is actually innate? Yeah, and that's a question we can't answer. Really.
No, not at all. You can't do it without performing incredibly unethical experiments on humans.
Right. Yeah. No, especially not until we decouple reproduction from gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yay, test tube babies. I'm excited about lab-grown babies. I think that's going to be a really exciting point in our future. Seriously.
All right.
I mean, let's...
Oh, yeah.
Why do we have to keep using women's bodies to incubate our children, right? It destroys them. It's terrible for women, and health and stuff like that.
I just, the phrase lab-grown, I only ever hear it referred to, for meat. And so you just, baby on the end of that.
Lab-grown baby.
Yep.
Tasty, tasty, tasty.
Oh, God. Anyway.
I mean, you can have the two facilities next to each other. You just can't mix them up.
Oh, no. My brain just went to a really, really dark place of just this meat tastes different. It's fresh. And whoops.
Tender, very tender.
Very tender.
See, now I'm thinking of a Far Side comic. Just like...
Oh, God.
Lab grown, someone crossing out.
Yeah.
Whoops, we mixed the signs up for the further...
Okay.
So Bragita gives them the terms of the deal. Basically, you have to apologize. They are incredibly offended because, God forbid, they actually apologize. And then I'm sort of just on the last page, and I feel like there's a lot of really good stuff in the last page.
Okay.
Basically, the comeuppance for the girls. This, you treated Matt like crap.
Yeah.
And now you're realizing it. And Brigita's telling you need to apologize. And you're like, well, it wasn't that bad. It was only one black sister. The Forsaken weren't paying attention. She's like, what?
Yeah.
What the what? The stone. Black Aja. Forsaken. He didn't even tell me any of that. And you still owe him an apology. It's very much this incredible, you have been treating him like crap. We know it. You know it. And now it's in your face.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say something here. I think maybe a hot take. I don't know if it is. I definitely think that they owed him an apology. I definitely think they owed him a thank you. I do understand, though, why they didn't in the moment. Because in that moment, in my mind, when I read that section, every single time it happens, every single time, I'm in their mind. They have no idea he's coming, and then he just shows up. And, I can totally, if I'm them at that moment, they're like, okay, we've dealt with the Black Aja, now we're figuring out fuck, Matt's here. Now we have to protect him. That's, they don't know that he has just fought his way. They had no idea what he's fought through and what he's done to get there. And then he's just suddenly there.
Yeah, but him appearing in the basement of the stone, it's not, they know where they are.
Oh,
right?
They know where they are, but also, in that moment, they were still trying to figure out how to get out.
It'd be like being stuck in the basement of Fort Knox and having your friend walk in and be like, I'm here to free you, and being like, oh, you must have just waltzed right in here. It's Fort Knox! No, he must have done amazing things to get in. Stone of Tear is famously impregnable.
It is famous, but I still, in that, they had been doing a bunch of shit to get themselves out, and he just opened the door. And I can get in that moment not recognizing what's just happened. Because they were not, in that moment, they were not oh my God, we're so helpless, we can't get out. They were figuring it out. The door opens. And they know that there's Black Aja and everything, and they don't know that if he they don't know what he knows. They don't know what he's fought through. They don't know that there's a battle. They know nothing. And they're just they should have thanked him later, but in that moment, I totally get why they didn't. Because it was just, they were not sitting there hoping somebody would come and rescue them. And then somebody came and rescued them, and yay! It was, okay, we're going to do this. Okay. We still have to do it. They still had to deal with the Black Sisters that were there, and they still had stuff to do. They should have thanked him later.
It kind of reminds me of if you're working on a crossword puzzle and you're stuck on a clue and someone comes over your shoulder and is like, oh, it's blah. And you're like, thank you?
Yeah.
But fuck off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had it. I was going to get it. And that to me, very much that same listen, if you gave us another half an hour, we would have escaped on our own. We didn't need your help, but they did, right? They were stuck. Right?
But I think if he had showed up, maybe you're right, half an hour later when they'd been like, oh my God, we can't get out of this, that may have been a different thing. But it was like they had we just did step 7. We're going to start step 8. The door opens. Like they don't know that they are hopeless at that moment. They literally did. Yeah.
And they needed each other, right? Like if Matt had walked in there, that was before his Tongreal.
Yeah.
Right? And so seconds beforehand, the Black Aja would have tied him up in ribbons.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he needed them to knock out the Black Aja, but they needed him to let them out.
Yes.
So it was absolutely a group effort.
It was definitely a group effort. People will often harp on the way they treated him at that moment, and I definitely, as I said, he was owed a thanks and apology later. But in that moment, I don't think that they realized that they were stuck. Like, I don't think that they knew we can't get out of this, because they literally had just done one thing and were about to start the next thing, and they didn't know that the next thing wouldn't work.
What do you think about their treatment of him since which is Bragita says, like, that makes it even worse?
Yeah, that it's not great. It's not great. I think if they had thanked him at that, like, later on, it probably wouldn't irk as much. But because they didn't, it feels like, it
was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was recently, like, Nyneave kicked him, and she's been avoiding him ever since, right? There was that little bit of, like, she did some physical violence to him that actually kind of hurt him, and she feels bad.
But, is that the physical violence where she kicked him in Saladar?
I'm trying to remember. I think so, yeah. And, like, he limped for a couple of days.
Okay, if it's that moment, because I think that's it, again, he had just physically yanked Egwene out of her chair and then refused to let the women explain their situation to him. He talked
No, it's a different situation.
It's a different situation,
because,
okay.
Yeah, because it's definitely, like, she winds up and kicks him in his behind just because she's frustrated with him. I think it's when they get to Abu Dar.
Okay, that's different, yeah. Because that moment in the tent as well, somebody brought that up in my server, and I went back and read it, and, like, actually, no. Not that she should have kicked him, but he literally was being an ass. He walked in and physically yanked Egwene out of her chair, and everybody tried to explain to him that she's Amerlin, and he wouldn't listen. He literally wouldn't listen to them at all. He physically pulled a woman out of her chair, and then he sat in her chair and put his feet up on her desk and kept talking. So
yeah, I don't think that was because once he realized that she was actually, he reversed on that pretty quick once he realized that she wasn't actually in trouble. But but
Nyneave had to kick him to get him to stop talking. That was
maybe that was the time that he hurt. But like she's been avoiding him ever since that kick. Right? She's been saying like, I do not want to talk to him. I'm afraid he's going to retaliate against me.
Yeah,
and I'm afraid that. And she feels that she was in the wrong, right?
Maybe, yeah.
So that's why I'll have to check that, but I think that's a different scene.
But yes, Nyneave has kicked a lot of people. So it's
true, and punched a few too.
Yes. So, but yeah. All right.
So, and that's really all I have is that they're, and then her being like, "Oh, this didn't work out. We totally should have sent. We should have sent,
which is great. Like that is great. It's absolutely great.
Because we see absolutely in the previous part of the chapter that she did not want to send Tom and Julian and argue heavily against it, and that hypocriticalness is just Nyneave to a T.
100%.
And I think that's a good place. That's a good place to leave this chapter. I think.
Yeah.
Technically Canadian is the best kind of Canadian, right? Your emoji has an evil grin going on. You're like, I'm gonna kill you.
Canadians are really nice up until a point. Yes. Yeah, but I'm a dual citizen as well. I'm Canadian and Bermudian, which makes me British. So.
Gotcha. Yep. Well, is it because Canadian is still part of the Commonwealth, right?
Canada's still part of the Commonwealth, but it's like it's its own country, whereas Bermuda is. Right. Bermuda's not, because it's like there's only 60,000 people that live on the entire island. So Bermuda's still a part of I think it's what's called a British protectorate. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up with colonization politics.
Oh, really? No?
Yeah, no.
Bermuda's somewhat unique with colonization politics in that they found an island that was empty and they colonized it. So it's not quite the same as...
Oh, Bermuda doesn't have any native populations.
No, there were no native... Like, there were pigs and birds.
Tasty.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah. Yeah.
Is it a desert?
No, it's a tropical... It's what's a subtropical island. So,
okay.
Yeah. It's closest to America. Like, it's closest to the Carolinas. But it's, like, still, I think, 400 miles out into the ocean. It's by itself. Like, nothing's around it.
Because I've been to Aruba, which that's a desert island. Yeah.
Ah, okay. But yeah, no, Aruba's like down in the Caribbean. Bermuda's like north of that. It's
Gotcha.
The only reason it's subtropical is because of the Gulf Stream. Like if it would be a bit cooler, but it's in the middle of the Gulf Stream, which keeps it warm.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the water's never going to vary temperature.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the geography
Oh,
lesson.
you're
clearly mine's lacking.
More than welcome. This is incredibly relevant to Wheel of Time. So, yes.
Is it shaped like a vagina island, or is it?
It's actually shaped like a fish hook. It kind of,
well,
yeah.
Well, so then
I didn't
let's
do that.
away.
Yeah.
No,
No,
we're not gonna-
moving on.
What genitalia?
Yeah.
Duck penis. So yeah, you were talking a little bit about school and tests.
Yeah, it's actually not school. I have to take a Korean. I live in Korea, South Korea, so I had to take a Korean language exam in July because my visa is about to expire, like in September, and so passing a language exam gives you more. You get a better visa if you can prove that you are invested enough in the country that you've tried to learn the language. So,
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
They provide that gateway.
Yeah.
So are you looking at staying there long term?
Well, I've been here for 8 years already. So
longer term.
Yeah, exactly. I have my idea of future planning is like, oh yeah, no, my lease, I have, I don't think far in the future. I'm not married, don't have kids. I don't have to think about, I have to think about myself. And right now I'm still happy here.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel similarly as I'm turning 40 this year without a wife or kids and no real, working in a kitchen on and off and doing this for fun. Like, I'm not spending a lot of time worrying about where is my career and life going.
Yeah. Just like, I'm happy, I'm content, and I like it here. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
how'd you end up there?
I came to Korea the first time, maybe like 13, 14 years ago, just for a year. Had an absolutely horrible time because I had a really terrible boss and ended up going back to Canada. I started to enjoy myself in Korea, maybe my last 2 months here. And I thought if I ever decide to travel again, I'll go back to Korea just because I feel like my experience there was really tainted by my boss, who was like, when people talk about having a sexist or a bad boss, this man literally told me to my face that he was never going to hire another woman. Like it was misogyny of an extreme. It was bizarre. Anyway, so when I decided I wanted to go back to school in Canada to get my master's, I couldn't afford it. So I thought I'm going to go to Korea to save money, came here to save money to get my master's, and then found out, just information for any of y'all out there, Korea has a scholarship for foreigners for free. And so they paid me to go to school in Korea. So I ended up doing that instead of saving money to go and do it back in Canada. I just did it here for free. Nice. And then I stayed. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing that most civilized countries treat foreigners well. It's because they want talented people to come to their country. Brain blowing.
Yeah, it was amazing actually. I find it really, they've changed the law in the last maybe 2 years here, because what they used to do is you would graduate from whatever free university that you got, and then they'd be like, okay, now leave. The visas it was actually really hard to get a visa to stay. Mm-hmm. I did, but I had to work really hard to get my visa to stay. And it was in the last couple of years, they suddenly went, wait a minute. We give these people free education. We invest all this time and money in them, and then we kind of kick them out of the country. That doesn't make any sense.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, suddenly they changed the law as if it just dawned on them that was really dumb. So it made it a bit easier to stay. So, yeah.
Nice.
I see someone here has done China. Okay, yeah. I've never tried to learn Chinese. Like, oh.
Oh, you know what would be wonderful? If you could say what language do we speak horn sounder in Korean?
Oh, gosh.
Is that even possible? Just so we have like an old tongue version of it?
Horn sounder. I got to figure out how to say horn sounder. Like, that's the hard part. I'm going to have to
horn blower or trumpeter or something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, these are just there are words that you just don't learn because they don't come up.
Right, you never encounter it.
I have never had to use the word trumpet in my life, as you know.
Oh, see, I'm helping. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to help you study. That's really
right.
What's
Thank
going
you.
on
That's
here.
yeah, all of this. Yes, I'm literally just now going into a translation program and looking up horn sounder. Sorry. It was the translation program occasionally will just be like, yeah, I don't know, and it will give me the same words but just spelled in Korean. So it literally just wrote horn sounder. No, that's not helpful.
No, not in the slightest.
No. Okay.
Trumpeter?
Gyeonggi. No, Gyeongami. Gosh, how do I say this? Gyeonggi. Gyeongbo balsengi. Oh my gosh, that's a weird one. 경험이 경보 발생기. 무슨 언어 말해요? 경험이 경보 발생기. I just said, what language do we speak? This is not exactly horn sounder. Yeah, it's trumpet blowing blower.
Trumpet blower. That
Yes.
works. That works. That absolutely works.
Yes.
That's fantastic. It sounds old tonguey to me, and especially with the way you point out Lan's dress is very Korean. Like, you know, hey, why not have Korean be the old tongue? Like that works for me.
Why not? Yes. Ooh, one who trumpets. That actually might work. That might be better than this one, because this is the word blow in that is a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's a different, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of want to avoid the one who blows. That's
yes.
There's too many ways to take that in English.
Exactly. So, anyway, yes. So that is how I came here. Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because trumpet is not a Korean thing. So yeah, the Korean word for trumpet is trumpet. So trumpeter 치는 사람, that makes sense. Yeah, that's better. trumpeter 치는 사람. It sounds better if you know Korean.
Okay.
The other one probably sounded more foreign.
It did.
It doesn't sound like it's a weird thing in English. Like, translating it in my brain was just like, no, it sounds more like you're blowing on a horn. Like literally blowing. Yeah, that's what it looks. Yeah, that's what it looked like. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and give you an intro, and then we can dig into the chapter.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?